Good morning, everyone. Welcome on this gorgeous summer day. As we launch the summer, we thought we would update you on a couple of topics this morning of two very important ones. One, the state classified salary exercise, which happens through Human Resources. And Tracy Hutton has fortunately agreed to speak a little bit about that. And then the other topic, which is a very large project, is Time Clock Plus. And Nick is going to share some information and be open to a lot of Q&A today. So please feel free to take advantage of that time. So we're going to start with Tracy. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm just going to do a quick overview of the state classified salary increase process and then give Nick the floor because I know that's really what you want to talk about. As in years past, there are two components to state classified salary increases this year: an across-the-board component, which is for all employees hired before July 1st, and then merit pay for eligible employees. And merit pay is based on your placement in the salary range, an employee's placement in the salary range, and their performance rating. So the across-the-board is 1.75%. That's applied to all employees. And their new base salary merit is applied for eligible employees on top of that. So eligible employees are individuals who either are rated as level 2 or level 3, successful or exceptional for the prior year, and who were hired prior to January 1st of 2017. So the matrix this year looks like this, very similar to what we've seen in the past. Merit pay, if someone is in the fourth quartile of the pay range, is a one-time payment rather than base building. The across the board will be base building for everyone, and so regardless of placement in the range, that 1.75% is a base building salary increase. Pay ranges are moving 2.2%, so the minimum and the maximum of each pay range will shift upward 2.2%. So this means that everyone will get, even if someone is currently at the top of the pay range, that 1.75% will be base building because the pay ranges are growing enough to add that 1.75% base building pay in. So we will be communicating this to, as we have in the past, to deans and VPs via spreadsheets for their areas. We're working seriously on those as we speak, and we'll be going out by the end of the week to all deans and VPs via email. Okay. We've updated Oracle with the new salary information, and I'll just click real quick onto our website and show you where, if you have questions or if you want to show this to some additional people, where you can find that. So there are two. We've kind of highlighted it on the home page. You'll see here information about July 1 salary adjustments, and then the new pay ranges right here. You can always get to this, the pay ranges for classified employees, through the compensation link as well. You'll see here these are the salary increase components, so it outlines all of those things in more detail that we just discussed. And then you go under here to state classified. We can pull up those pay ranges real quick. You'll see that they are by the minimum, midpoint, and maximum, or by quartiles. So, right. The quartile determination is based on June 1st. So wherever someone was in the quartile, in the pay range on June 1st, that's what determines merit. And
we weren't sharing.
Sorry.
No, my bad.
So to determine what quartile, you'll look at fiscal year 17, but the new pay ranges are the fiscal year 18 pay ranges. Any questions for me?
Tracy, could you speak to if someone doesn't meet the minimum of the range?
Sure. If she's asking if someone doesn't move to the minimum of the new pay range, so we talked about pay ranges moving 2.2%. A new employee, if they were hired at the minimum of the pay range, when they get that 1.75% base building increase, they likely could be below the new pay range minimum. They will move up to that minimum. That only impacts employees who, after any increases, still fall below the minimum of the new pay range. One additional, that if someone is hired in the performance cycle, so let's say someone was hired July of last year, they worked 9 months of the performance cycle, they would get 9/12 of that merit pay increase, so only for the amount of time they were in the performance cycle. Clear? Any questions? Let me ask you some things.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
A quick note that the spreadsheets will be copied to folks that the deans and the vice presidents asked us to copy last year. So if there's a financial officer or another individual that the dean or the VP would like copied, that's the person we're copying. So if your dean, your vice president, vice provost wishes to have someone else copied or an additional person copied, please let me know or let Nick know, and we will copy that person. So if you could somehow include your dean, your VP in that communication, which lets HR know, yes, indeed, the dean and the VP are asking for that or agree with it, we'd be happy to copy any additional folks. Otherwise, the expectation is that each of the deans and the VPs will sift that information down to the unit. Our goal is to get it out, as Tracy mentioned, this week, in the next day or two, with the hope that letters will go out to all employees before July 1. And we'll have a suggested letter. Your unit may already have a letter, a template that you use, but we will provide a suggested template, should that be of interest. Great. Nick, Time Clock Plus, your existence at the moment.
That and fiscal year end, a few other things. Okay, I don't have a whole lot to show on the screen here. This is mostly going to be a Q&A, but I do want to start by pointing your attention to just the resources that I've been sharing regularly in the trainings. Trainings are ongoing, and we're letting folks know about them, but we're adding trainings as we go to sort of judge how many we need by how many people are attending the trainings. And since the last few were attended more sparsely, we've added, 3 this week. We'll probably be adding 3 for the following week. But from the front page, there are a couple of new resources out here that you're probably already aware of, but I just want to point your attention to them. This first one, Time Clock Plus information and updates. This page I'm updating pretty frequently, and this has frequently asked questions on it. So if you have a question that hasn't been answered to your satisfaction, you can take a look there and see if it's answered. And then also, training guides and schedule. This has our schedule of trainings, live trainings. It also has a recording of each of the live trainings. You can join any of these via BlueJeans, by the way, the live ones. And then also below that, and I think that some people have not realized that this is out there yet, there are video training guides and handout training guides with screenshots for individual topics. So these are typically between 5 and 10 minutes. They're quick first-person, point-and-click kind of guides that I narrate. And so these are good to review if you just need to know how to do one single task. And I think there may be 1 or 2 that are still going to be added to this as we find new things that people need to know about in the system. For instance, just recently I added one for configuring a standalone time clock. So if you're receiving standalone time clocks in your department and you've got them and they're in a box and you don't know what to do with them, this will show you. This doesn't have a video guide to it, but it does have a PDF guide that has photos of what you actually do step by step. Pretty easy. You mostly just hook it up, give it a name, and send a little bit of information to us. So it's fairly straightforward, but there is a guide out there for it. And then I mostly wanted to give a brief status update. We have a couple of outstanding things that we're waiting for from Time Clock Plus. One of those is to integrate with our single sign-on solution, that is so that you can use your EID credentials to get into the system. The update to that is that we've tested it now, and it works. So they got that to communicate with our system, and now they're just implementing it. We have to do some work on our side and on their side to get that all hooked up, and so that there will be a link on the aar.colostate.edu site that will allow you to enter the system using your EID credentials. The other piece that we're still working on with them is ironing out some little issues with our import, with getting the data into the system. it works really well for the most part. There are a couple of weird little wrinkles that we're just working through with them. Once we get both of those things done, we're going to turn on the system, and of course we'll send out communications about that. So we hope to have that done before June 24th when the system goes live, because we want to give people a chance to get in and look around and see what it looks like for them, make sure that there are no issues. But then if you want to, you can go in now from the frequently asked questions page, because I was asked for it a bunch of times. There is a page now with test employees. So there's a list of test employees, and obviously these don't use the links that we'll be using eventually. These are not EID credential links. These are just links that you can go to and put in a CSU ID. And then we have one supervisor and one department HR role example that oversees these employees. So you can get in there and see what the functionality is like, familiarize yourself a little bit if you want to. I've also been getting questions from folks who are downloading the app for clocking in and out and wondering why it doesn't work yet. The reason it doesn't work yet is because the employees aren't in the system yet. We've got groups of them in, but we don't have the whole campus in. So please let your hourly employees know not to freak out if the time clock on the app isn't working yet. So I'd like to open this up to questions now, and I have some questions here in case we need some help getting started, but does anybody have any questions? Yes.
How do you preload comp time?
Yeah, great question. That's on my list.
Okay.
If you have comp time in your department and you want it loaded into the system, you can send me that information. Just send it to hr_is@mail.colostate.edu. And we can load that into the system very easily. So all I need is the assignment number and the amount of comp time in hours that should be loaded as the beginning of the year, the fiscal year. So that email address is here. And obviously annual and sick leave will be loading in automatically. Yes.
So if someone's leave is not leave, but someone's time is not approved, they get a notification saying your time was not approved?
They do not. So I'm going to repeat questions for the benefit of those on the phone. If your time is not approved, does the employee get a notification of that? No, unless it's leave. So if a leave request is denied or approved, the employee will get a notification back through the system and an email saying that this is the result of your leave request. It doesn't work that way for time because there really isn't a way to deny time. It either has to be corrected, deleted, or approved. And so they can check their hours in the system. The employees can always go in and see all of their hours and whether or not they're approved yet, but there's no automated notification about that.
Well, I just want to confirm, because you had said before one of the trainings that all of it has to be approved, or otherwise if like one day isn't approved and all of it does not get approved?
That's correct. For hourly employees, all of the time has to be approved for the employee for that pay period in order for it to export into the payroll system. So
should they keep doing backup paper timesheets? Because if they miss it, then how are they going to know what hours?
So if they miss it, if for some reason something's not approved, it will stay in the system. There's still a record of it there, and it stays out there as unapproved time. It just doesn't get pulled into the system. So the employee will know that because they'll see that they didn't get get paid. And they'll see in the system that none of their hours are approved.
And so how would they re-enter? They have to go back to those hours and re-enter them?
Correct. So if that does happen, then the department has to take action to gather those hours and inform HR Central that these hours were late, didn't get paid. Payroll is working on a process for how that's going to look in terms of a form, and it's going to include both leave and time on the same form, is my understanding. But I can't speak to that precisely.
I didn't quite understand that. Say if a person has 9 different entries and 8 of them get approved and 1 doesn't, won't those 8 go across like they do now?
They will not. So if somebody, for a single pay period, if there's any amount of time not approved for an hourly employee, just hourly, it's not going to be pulled into the payroll system.
That's awesome. So in which case, Nick, what happens is that it becomes important for the employee and the supervisor to remain in communication and ensure that all time is entered and approved in the pay period, correct?
Yes, it's very important then to be paying attention. So in every training that I've given, both with employees and managers and department HR role, I've stressed the importance of making sure that everybody goes into the system as the pay period is closing. Employees checking to make sure their hours are approved, managers to make sure they're approving everything, and then there's a whole pay period closeout part of the training that I've been doing so that the department HR role can see anything that hasn't been approved for the pay period very quickly. That has gone out. I sent out an email. I'm just going to repeat that for those on the phone. I sent out an email to the non-student hourlies and to the students last week. Or student employment sent out an email to the students. Sure. Would that be useful? I can send that to the HRMS user listserv? Okay. Yeah, I'll send that there.
Any type of communication like that is helpful for us to see, because if students call us asking about it and we have no clue, then they have to send it to us. It just is a helpful heads up on
okay. Okay, good to know. I will do that. Yeah.
Will there still be the option to, in Oracle, just back up the timesheets since they only stay for a short period of time?
What do you mean by that, back up the timesheets?
Currently, when we go to the time card option in Oracle, and we can back up, save them on our drive in our department, because they only stay currently, when you go to look to print a time card, it only stays there for like 6 pay periods or something, and it goes away, and then we don't have access to see.
Right. It will be retained in Time Clock Plus forever. So, and you can run reports out of there. So you can always go and run a report for any pay period from the time that we start out of Time Clock Plus.
Okay, because currently in Oracle, it goes blank after a certain number of weeks.
Yes, it's going to be different in Time Clock Plus. It'll be retained. And you can always go back to previous time.
I have several questions, so it depends on how much time you've got.
Okay.
So the most recent one, will only the supervisor be able to approve the leave data if they're gone out of the country for an extended period? How do we get the approval?
Okay. So there are 2 roles in the system that can approve leave for an employee, and that's the supervisor on the assignment can automatically approve leave for that employee, and then the department HR role can approve leave. So if somebody is going to be out of the office and unable to approve leave for an amount of time, there are a couple of options. One is to temporarily change the supervisor in Oracle, which is fairly quick and easy, and the other is to have an offline process where the department HR role is doing the official approval in Time Clock Plus, but you're having somebody who is acting as a backup designee in your department approving that leave on paper, via an email, what have you. But having the department HR role doing the actual clicking of the box in Time Clock Plus.
So then that also leads to how fast does Oracle and TMS integrate? Like if you change the supervisor in Oracle, how fast not TMS, Time Clock Plus do that?
Right now, the time delay between a change in Oracle and seeing the change in Time Clock Plus is overnight. We might make that even faster, depending. Time Clock Plus has the ability to make that faster, but first we want to iron out the sort of auto-import issues that we're seeing, and once that is done, then we're going to try to increase the time, or shorten the time delay. Kenny, you had a question, then we'll jump back.
Starting leave reconciliation, since we're going from our current system to the time clock, how do we reconcile the leave, make sure that the balance is the time clock plus, correct, at the end of the year?
So the balances are going to be the same always, within that 24-hour delay. So you can do the reconciliation. The reconciliation in terms of cleaning up that process for this fiscal year is going to look the same as it always has. You just do it out of Oracle, and there will be an additional batch there for the fiscal year end. Going forward, those are always going to be in sync, so you can grab the data from either place. The only difference is that the leave balances in Time Clock Plus are going to include, you're going to also be able to see what has been taken that month in Time Clock Plus, which might make it a better place to look for current leave.
So when we reconcile, we still do that through Oracle, but just anything new then just goes into Time Clock Plus.
Correct. Yes. So the question is, can you put in a graduate student as a supervisor in Oracle? Yes, you absolutely can. You can put an associate as well, if that's required. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any balloon over here that's going to happen? They designated graduate student supervisor.
If they're the most appropriate person, if they're doing the actual supervision, that might be completely appropriate. It's hard to speak to specific situations, but it's not. There's nothing that occurs to me that's going to have some bad impact. Not that comes to mind.
Supervisor training, right?
Yeah, that's true. But if they're actually doing so for supervisor training, they might be listed. But if they're actually doing the supervision, I assume that then the faculty member is going to be supervising the graduate student, and so they will still be included as a supervisor. My hesitation is that I'm thinking about effort certification. But do you have a comment about that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because I might be wrong, but the supervisor at Oracle, but then on each job we can put an approval person, so either or.
So I think that what you're speaking to is the projects concept of having a project approver. So if you have an hourly employee, and that's a really good point, thank you for bringing that up. So for hourly employees, you need to designate projects for them through the Time Clock Projects form. On that form, there's a project approver button, and you can give, if you want to keep the faculty member as the official supervisor in the system, you can also just designate that graduate student as a project approver on the Time Clock approval form. No, they will. So anybody who is designated as a project approver on the Time Clock Projects form is actually going to be imported and have access in Time Clock Plus to go in as a manager and approve time. They will not be able to approve leave for that employee, just time. So what there isn't a project for non-exempt salaried employees, and I only say that because some people have been confused about that. It's only for our biweekly hourly employees that we need to have projects for them. And by the way, good thing to bring up, because I do want to make sure that everybody understands, and because I think that this is an HR liaison role typically, that projects have to be created for those hourly employees to be able to clock in and out. And we're not automatically bringing in, we're not duplicating the old projects into the new Time Clock Projects form because of the various changes we've made and improvements we've made. So if that hasn't happened yet, please check out there's a training about it online that's pretty thorough, and if you have any questions, I can give you a list of current projects on the current Time Clock system. That's question over here? Yeah.
And to add approvers to the project account, we just fill out the form online?
Yes. So if somebody doesn't appear on that Time Clock Project Approver section, then you would complete the HR System Data Access form, and click the time clock approval button. So they don't need, the only time that, the time clock plus department HR role is the much bigger role, right? That can act as backup, approve everything for the department. This time clock approval role works the way that it has in the current time clock system, where all they do is approve time on assignments that are connected with a project. And so that's the only level of access they need. That access does carry over. So if a person already has time clock approval in Oracle, you'll still see them in the new form. That won't change. Question in the back.
There's going to be an approver that doesn't already.
Correct. Anybody who doesn't already have time clock approval access, and anybody who's not a supervisor on an assignment that they need to be a supervisor for. If you're a supervisor, you do not need to have this form filled out. You'll automatically have access to approved time and leave in the system. Supervisor in Oracle on the assignment. So I'm distinguishing between supervisors on the assignment that can approve time and leave for anything on the assignment, and time clock project approvers, which are just time for assignments that are connected to that project, and they do need to have this access form filled out if they don't already have it. That's fine. Mm-hmm.
They're fine, they don't.
Correct.
But if they want to find a graduate student, also be able to hours, then I need to do one of those.
Yes. To reiterate for those on the phone, if you have a graduate student that you're going to place as an approver on for a project, not change the supervisor on the assignment, but create an approver role for them, they will need this form filled out. Another thing I want to clarify about this form, because I've had a few questions, is that there's nobody is automatically getting the time clock plus department HR role. This isn't a one-to-one from the from approval authority or anything like that. So if you do need time clock plus department HR access to time clock plus, you will need to fill out this form no matter what, if you haven't already. We've had a lot of people that have already done that. I just want to mention it.
So this is all faculty people who are doing this, all of them have to?
Nope. If a faculty person is already listed as the supervisor in Oracle on an assignment, they do not need to fill anything out at all. They will automatically get it. It's only for those project approvers and the department HR role that can oversee everything for a department. Yes?
If we want to remove someone from the project approver list, do we fill this out and ask?
If you need to remove somebody, typically all we've done is received an email. An email is sufficient for that.
How is the training for the project build labeled?
Oh, so if you want to see the training about time clock projects, under training guides and schedule, it is covered under the department HR full training. But if you scroll down to department HR training, there's one that's called managing time clock projects. Does that answer the question? I do want to mention also that if there are a few departments that have approved alternate work schedules, and of course those have to be approved through HR. But if you are a department that does have that, please contact me so that I can make an exception in the system. And so what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about 4 10s. If you work 4 10-hour days, we don't have to do anything special in the system. But there are a couple of situations out there where there's a work schedule where instead of the work week being Saturday to Friday, they work Sunday to Saturday, and that's how overtime is calculated, for instance. There aren't very many of these, but we do need to know about them in order to incorporate them in the system. We can handle it. It's just we need to know about it.
There was also a question about holidays. Someone understood that the holidays need to be created for just non-exempt employees. Is that correct?
So holidays do need to be created for non-exempt hourly employees or non-exempt salaried employees. And then the holidays for hourly employees will work the same way that it does now. It's just that the time will be entered through Time Clock Plus. So there are 2 job codes in the system. like leave types and assignments and everything like that, there are two job codes, one for holiday pay for hourly and holiday pay for salaried. And so you would apply that as holiday pay for your non-exempt salaried employees. And then you'd also apply it to hourly the way that we do now, so that after that payroll has run and you know how many hours they have, you prorate the amount of holiday pay they get and you apply it to whatever the current pay period is. It's just now we do it in Time Clock Plus and we designate it as holiday pay. And I've had a few questions on that, so that might be something that we will create a guide for as well. Yeah, sure.
The project name on your example is really long. So our normal project name that we put in the Time Clock Plus project, is that all that will show up, or will it be more parts? Will it include like the job title, et cetera, several parts, or is it only going to be the project name itself?
So when
they clock in.
So the project name that's created on the Time Clock Projects form, I think, has a 30-character limit. And then when the employee clocks into that project, they're going to see the department, their assignment number, and the employee group, so student work study, student non-work study, and then the project name that you've given to it. There's been a suggestion that instead of seeing the employee group, we actually see the job classification, so that a student, instead of seeing student hourly or student work study or student non-work study, they would see their student classification. That may be a change that we make if we get positive feedback to that suggestion. Does that answer your question?
First, they have to go into their assignment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically going to be the same as now. They go into the assignment, because the majority of our assignments have multiple project names, and then they'll see the project name?
Right.
At the end?
So they'll see, if they have multiple assignments, they'll first choose their assignment, and then if they have multiple projects, then they will also see the project. So, oops. So this person only has one project. And that person has, well, got mine. Here we go. So this is what the projects will look like. You'll see, so this person only had one assignment eligible to clock into, but once you pick an assignment, this is the screen you'll see if you have multiple assignments, and this is the amount of information it shows you. This project column is what's determined by the department.
So if that first project, that first assignment, there are 3 different project names, it will have 3 lines, and then they choose that one line?
3 different project names? There's only one project name for a project.
No, that's for the assignment. We have several project names tied to one account number.
Oh, then they will see all of, yes. So if there's one account number and the employee can see all of those. So in this case, if these are both referencing, these projects might both be referencing the same account number. So you would see it like this for each of those. Are we out of time? Are we going till?
9:35.
Okay, great.
So what if someone has multiple assignments?
So if they have multiple assignments, then the first screen that they will see is the choice of assignment. I'm going to try this again. Okay, so here, this employee has multiple assignments. And so when they clock in, they first select their job code. A job code is an assignment or a leave type or any number of things in Time Clock Plus. And so you'll see the ID number here is their assignment number, And instead of seeing -8 or -9, you see a 08 or 09. And then this is the description of their assignment. So it's the type and the number of the assignment.
Were you saying you're going to get rid of the difference versus work?
Well, that's the problem, right? We can,
I could.
yeah, please give me feedback, yeah.
Work study person,
Mm-hmm.
don't get rid of that because students clock in on the wrong one
Right,
already.
as it is.
When they need them.
Right.
So if they're not there.
Ideally, what we'd have here, so the discussion for those on the phone is about whether to change this description field or not of the assignment. We could do that. There is a suggestion that it might be more useful to have the classification so that I'd see like accounting, tech, whatever here. But this is a short descriptor field. Looks like there's a lot of room here, but it's actually very short. So we can't have the employee group and the job classification unless we significantly shortened it. So we could say SWS, SNWS for the employee group, and then add a job classification. I'm just trying to, I'm still working on thinking about the best way to make this clear. And this is something that we can change later. So it's not like, if it's found that it's clearer to have this a different way, we could change it potentially. The problem, of course, for students is that you come in here, you might have student work study 6, 7, and 8, right? And so there is some responsibility to the employee to know what assignment they're clocking into, but that's the case now, so.
So a lot of departments will have, same classification.
That's true as well. Yep.
Intern work study, non-work study, so.
Yep.
To be true.
Yeah, and I've been telling, as you know, the guides say, and I've been telling people in the trainings that if you don't know what you should be collecting it out of, please just ask your supervisor or department HR staff. There's one in the back and then back up here. Fair point. So I could eliminate the word student. That's true. I'll take that under advisement. Christina.
So what if someone has 2 non-work study assignments under the same department, 2 different supervisors and 2 different pay rates? How would they know which one to clock in on?
So if that's the case, if I have 2 non-work study assignments with just different numbers, I will have to know which number it is. So.
And is there any way on this that they can identify that?
The pay rates are not brought into Time Clock Plus. Supervisor exists, but I don't think there's a way to display it to the employee. That's something that I could check on, though. Would that be a useful way of identifying what? All right. Well, let me see if I can ask the question anyway. Okay. Oh. That's right. Go ahead, and then we'll.
Possible for that to say,
I think that this is pretty limited, so I don't think, if anything that we include here, I think we'd have to massage it so that we'd fit the character limit. We could put the department number potentially, and then, but I don't know if that's, I don't know how helpful that is. Again, it's something that I can ask if we can get more information on this screen, but my understanding is that this is driven by the job code, and that job code description just has a short character limit right now. Did you? Okay.
If you indate a labor distribution for the student, would that somehow force this not to see that account number, and then it wouldn't list the inactive sort of the student assignment, as it were?
Yeah. So can a department remove the labor schedule from a student's assignment?
Yeah, like if I've got a non-student if I've got a work study and a non-work study, and I want to make sure that they sign in on the work study one, can I in the labor distribution on the non-work study one, so that kind of doesn't feed into this? You
could, absolutely. I want to ask student employment, though, representatives in the crowd, if that's the ideal way to do that. So if we want to get if a student is still active in Oracle, but they're not actually working anymore, we could remove their labor schedule, the department could delete their labor schedule or end date their labor schedule so that they no longer get in here. Is that the best way to do it? Okay. I didn't want to speak for you guys on that. So, okay, that would be the best way to do that then. That's why I asked, because I wasn't sure if that was the best idea. Okay. Yeah, it'll keep them from seeing it in here then. Yeah. So that would work for us. For
Well, they suspend it after 4 months. That's the HR policy. But it doesn't terminate. It doesn't terminate. It would be the same thing if you're suspended, but we don't want it to be suspended. Fine.
But if you just end their labor distribution, they still are active. You can turn that on and off at any time.
Right.
As long as they're active.
Right. So you can leave them active and end date their labor schedule, and then they won't be able to access projects in the system anymore to clock in and out. That is correct. I guess it's a little bit of an open discussion. It sounds like, though, we don't want people suspending their own students. So, okay. It could be revisited. I'm not saying it couldn't. I don't want to.
But we'll approve it or decline it now.
Right.
All of them.
Right.
Even if you try to.
Okay.
And my interpretation of that question was, can you end the labor distribution temporarily so they clock into the correct assignment if they need to use up the work study, and then when it comes winter break, you just delete that date and you can put it on the other one so that they're clocking into the correct assignment. People do that all the time. It just will let them only see one assignment on the time clock at a time. So the department can go in and just delete that end date to control it so they only see one assignment and clock in correctly.
The only thing.
So it's a good, easy way to do it if you don't want to have to move hours from non-work study to work study to make sure they get their work study use stuff.
So the suggestion is for those on the phone that you can end date one part of the labor schedule and leave an account open so that they are only able to clock into a particular project or assignment at a time in order to control that. I'm going to suggest alternatively that it's very simple now for department HR staff and a supervisor, if they supervise both roles, to be able to open up that shift in Time Clock Plus and change the job code. So you can change it to another assignment after it's been clocked, and it keeps an audit trail of that action. So there is a corrective that you can do before it comes to payroll if somebody's clocked into the wrong thing.
I was interpreting the question not have to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it seems like they're always having, that person always clocks in wrong, and they're always having to change it with extra work.
Right.
So if they can't see it, they can't clock into it, then it won't be wrong.
Yes.
The other thing to keep in mind, if they run out of their work study, who's going to be charged hours at that point? As long as the accountant don't necessarily have to have for the same job application and accountant.
Okay. Yeah. So it is. So I'm not going to say that as well. But if you're out of work study on an assignment, it will change that automatically into time entry wages. So it's not going to mess anything up necessarily. So yeah.
HR, how we can fix, let's say they have two non-working, and they hours on the wrong one. The supervisor didn't catch it, and we're doing our final check.
How do you go about that?
How do we?
Sure. So the question is, how does that actually happen? How do I go into the system as a department HR staff, and change the hours to a different assignment? So there's information in the training about this whole screen, hours and approving individual hours and how to go about this. But essentially, if I choose a shift that hasn't yet been approved, and if it has been approved, I can unapprove it so that I can take this action. But as long as it's in an unapproved state, I can double click it to open it up, and I can change their job code. This person only has one assignment, but I can change the job code here, and I can change the project here, and then save it.
You say it hasn't been approved by the supervisor or by HR?
By the supervisor. So
the supervisor misses it. We're checking.
Correct.
And then do they have to?
Or you can approve it again. The shift has already been approved. So again, since there's an audit trail here, it'll show that the student clocked in and out of this project and assignment, the manager approved it, the department HR person, it'll say exactly who all these people are, unapproved it, made a change, and reapproved it. And the change was to the new job code. So you can absolutely do that. You don't have to have the manager reapprove it if you know that's what's supposed to happen. What else was I going to say about that?
So the department HR liaison should be going through everything once before everything goes to approval? I mean, processes?
We are asking the department HR role to be proactive about checking as the pay period ends to see what is still outstanding in terms of approvals, what hasn't been approved yet for time and leave, and to help us to prompt those supervisors to go in and do those approvals. Yes. Or act as the backup approver. Sorry.
You were saying before that if an approver only approves 8 out of 9 times, entered times, that individual won't get paid for any of those times. What if that individual has an assignment in multiple departments on campus? Mm-hmm. You approved all yours, but another department, you have no idea if they have. Will they get paid for at least your department's portion?
They won't. So unfortunately, this all works by the employee.
Can you repeat the question?
That is really terrible.
So the question is, what if somebody's, you know what? I'm going to take that back. Because it didn't get a good reaction. No, actually.
It's bad enough that they don't get paid for those 8 shifts.
So if somebody's, this works, the export from the system does work by assignment. So I believe, and I'll double check this, that if all of the shifts are approved in your department but not another, the shifts in your department will be approved.
If they're different assignment different, then how does that work?
Right.
Same assignment project.
If it's the same assignment but different projects, then nothing will flow to payroll if something hasn't been approved in that pay period.
So if it's by assignment, we have some people that literally have 10 assignments in our department. If assignment 1 gets approved, doesn't get approved, but the rest do, so they'll pay for the other assignments, not assignment 1.
Yes, if there are multiple assignments within your department, yes. I believe so. Again, I'm going to double check on that, but I believe that's the case. Yes?
Are you going to try to do that so it's all approved assignments, all approved notes? Like right now, with the time clock we have, as long as they're approved, those get paid, but the unapproved. Are we going to fix that? Because, lots of times that last Friday, the supervisor forgets to approve that last Friday, but everything else is approved. Mm-hmm. So we need to fix it so everything approved pays, regardless if one didn't. So are you going to work your time clock so that we get that fixed?
It's something that we can talk to them about. I think that the idea... Okay. Well, it's something that we'll look at.
So let me ask a question then, because a part of what we're trying to do is mechanize this work at the institution, and we're also working on how we don't have so many retroactive actions that take place. They cause a lot of challenges for us. And so is there a way, we can't avoid all, but we very much work in an environment of exceptions at the university. And so part of our effort is to bring central systems that help us out as an institution. So what other actions can we take? What other steps can we take to try to ensure that all of it's approved?
My department on the time clock.
Right.
And I go through every time to see who hasn't approved, and I contact them and say, you know, we need to approve these hours. But there could be lots of communication just in those last 2 days where they're out or something, and you can't get a hold of them. And you don't know, I mean, I can approve hours, but I don't know if I should approve those hours. And there could be a delay at those last couple days. I mean, even if I tell them, please go in and approve, if for those 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or whatever, they're at a conference and I can't contact them. You know, I mean, we're going to have real issues. I mean,
we'll have to take a look at that.
For the hours that have been approved, regardless.
We're going to have to take a look at that because a part of what we want is a full picture of what the person worked and paying that person for what they've worked. So we'll definitely take a look at that, and certainly don't encourage folks to approve time that you aren't sure was worked or not worked, because approving time worked is actually a pretty significant action that is taken. So we'll have to talk about that. There was a hand. There was a hand over on this side.
I was just going to say, I have 600 students and 150 career staff, and I run a report the Tuesday after the pay period ends, and I show all the unapproved hours, and I email those supervisors, and I say, you have to get them approved, and I check it, and I ultimately say, I will approve them, and you will have to fix them at a later date. Because it is their responsibility to verify that, but it's also your responsibility to make sure those people get paid.
Right, I know.
But if that's what the people are out of town a lot, I mean, we have that problem a lot. Where people are out of job, but there's no one there to approve. There's no one else to
approve them,
but if 10 o'clock plus only let supervisor approve.
But they said you can have a grad, you can have somebody else additional approver.
If that's not on there already, then what do you do? I mean, I think this happens a lot where one thing will be approved, but one thing will be missed, and then instead of just having one day not paid, they're not paid at all. I think that's a bigger problem.
And that's it, it's just that one day.
Yeah. And the other reason it would be good to let them go across, because a lot of people, it's just not that one day, then they'll say, that's okay, you can pay, let it sit and pay me on the next pay period. I can get by without that 4 hours. But if they have 30 hours in there and 26 were approved but 4 weren't, then fine, if I get paid for that 26 hours, I'll be good. But I can't go by with not that 26 hours. I think you're going to see the amount of special checks go up significantly, and then departments after 10 checks, they get charged. So hopefully that will help people get in there and approve things. But that's another reason it would be less work for HR themselves if they could send up the actual things that have been approved, no matter if it's the complete hours or not. So that's another reason to look at that option.
My understanding is that the perspective of Time Clock Plus in the way that they do it now, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, I'm just saying that this is why they have it set up this way, is that if I have unapproved time earlier in the week, so I want my time later in the week to be paid because suddenly those hours are approved and I would have had overtime. It's to get, because you need an entire picture of a week and a pay period finalized in order to know how to pay things. And I think that they actually have other situations where that's of even greater import for different reasons, but that's why it's configured that way.
So that was going to be my question, is if some of those hours don't get approved, and it would have caused overtime, and they're paid later, does it miss that calculation of overtime?
Right.
Okay.
It would, yeah. It's overtime that is based on what's approved, so. Right.
And it doesn't look at the date.
Well, not for unapproved hours. It's not going to.
But when the unapproved hours are paid, what go by date?
But how is it going to catch up if those other hours have already been paid? It's not, there's no way, we've already exported that pay period, so how's it going to go back and say, but, oh wait, that should have been overtime and exported, and, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yes? Any differences for state classified hourly employees? Nothing comes to mind in terms of a practical difference in the system. They may be eligible for different leave types than some of the other hourly employees, but that doesn't have to do with their time. I do want to mention one thing but as we're getting close to the end here, because it's another thing that's come up, and I want to make sure that this message gets out to all the departments, is that it is possible in the system to have a 0-hour leave request. So if you want to continue the practice of having employees in the department essentially fill out a 0-hour leave sheet, which is what most of us do now, right? I didn't take any leave this month, 0 hours annual, 0 hours sick, and turn that in. You can continue to have employees do that in Time Clock Plus. We're not requiring it centrally, but essentially you can go as an employee, if you're leave eligible, open up the last day of the month and request and create a 0-hour leave and a 0-hour annual leave and 0-hour sick leave requests and have that approved by the supervisor and go to HR staff. And all it says is, I didn't forget to record my leave for the month, I just didn't take any leave this month. So that's still an option in the system. We had that as a request. Yes?
Are there any guidance there about what the department role is in Time Clock Plus?
So the guidance for what the HR department role is in Time Clock Plus, all of that information is in training guides. So there's a full training for department HR staff, and then the sort of individual pieces that they do are here.
So all of those individual pieces, HR role is.
Right. So, and the biggest of those is pay period closeout, right? Helping us make sure that everything gets approved before it comes to HR. But then the other sort of special thing that the department role has is creating shifts and special leave segments for the department. Supervisors can create shifts for an employee that they are supervising, but the role of the department HR staff is to create leave without pay and things like that through the system. Yes?
Do graduate assistants, are they required as well to time clock system, or is that optional for departments?
Good question. Are graduate assistants required to use Time Clock Plus? They are not, and they will not be imported into the system unless they're as a supervisor. And there are also graduate assistants who will, for a time, also have a non-student hourly role, and their non-student hourly role will be in here. But as a graduate assistant and as a postdoc, generally those two groups will not be in the system unless they're supervising. Question? Yes?
So what happens if an employee does forget to record annual leave for a prior month or two, and can that be entered retroactively?
So retroactive leave can't be entered into the system unless that pay period hasn't closed. So I can enter leave in the Time Clock Plus system. I can enter June leave in the Time Clock Plus system through July 5th. But I can't go back several months and enter leave. And so again, that sort of retroactive action is going to take place through this new process that payroll and HR Central is working on for giving us time and leave that is retroactive.
And was that information coming out?
I don't know. I'll have to talk internally about that, but soon.
So we're still entering June leave in Oracle, though, until...
Yes, so we'll start with July for reporting leave. And if your leave has already been approved for July in some other system, we do ask that you get it into Time Clock Plus and reapproved so that we'll have it captured in the new system when it goes live. Okay, it looks like we're out of time. Oh, Lynn?
Just one last question.
Sure.
With the mobile app, I know that if we want to turn that off, we need to notify your team.
Mm-hmm.
Can it be only available to a certain, like, account number or project number? Or if we don't use it, no one can use it?
That's a good question. So the question is, can we turn off the mobile app functionality for a certain group, not just a whole department? It is possible. It might have to be done manually, so we'll have to look at the specific case and see what we can do. So just give me a call about that. Okay, I think we're out of time. Obviously, there are probably more questions floating around out there, so feel free to email us. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Anna,
you,
anything?
appreciate it. And thanks, Tracy. Have a good day, everyone.